Hey guys, welcome back to Jess and Reads Romance. I'm Jessin, and today I'm here to talk about the historical romance readathon. Funnily enough, it's almost the end, and yes, I'm starting my vlog very late. So, to give a long story short, the week of the historical romance readathon fell on a week where I was going to the beach for vacation. I did start the readathon the Sunday before, so the readathon started this Monday on the 9th, and I started on the 8th right during the Mafia Romance readathon, because I wanted to read The Lion's Lady, which is the group pick for this readathon. And I didn't want to take this paperback to the beach because it's freaking beautiful. Look, it has like the metallic sheen to it. Oh, I love it. I love it so much. I've been collecting Julie Garwood's, and this was a great find. I only have 2 days left to read an historical romance readathon, and I've only read one book so far. How many books can I read for Saturday and Sunday? We'll see. So let's first talk about The Lion's Lady. I do want to preface this by saying Julie Garwood, she was writing in like the 80s and the 90s. This book was written in, give me one second, 1988, and I have read quite a few by her. My favorite is The Secret, and I think that The Secret is the only book by Julie Garwood that I've read that stands up really well for modern day readers, I would say. I feel like that story just ages very well. The rest of the books that I've read by Julie Garwood, I have enjoyed them a lot, but I know that other people have not, because there are just some elements in the books that might be like a little cringe, or she uses like outdated language and stuff like that, that would be considered a little offensive nowadays. So I always approach older romances with that mindset that they're not going to be written like modern day historical romances, and I don't have that expectation for them. That being said, not all of Julie Garwood's blow me away, so I was very interested to see what The Lion's Lady was even about. And I was pleasantly surprised. It was interesting, it was intriguing, it was definitely much different than any other Julie Garwood that I've read before. So the prologue, or chapter 1, begins in the point of view of this Native American woman, or there might have been, the shaman probably has a vision first. So the shaman of this Dakota tribe has a vision, and he's not really sure how to interpret it. It's very strange for him to interpret these bison protecting this lion who has like the pelt like of white lightning and stuff. So he's like not really sure how to interpret that, but he goes to his chieftain and tells him basically kind of like a partial truth. And recently there was this battle, and the chieftain lost his daughter and his grandson. And what they didn't know at first was that she was captured and she was not killed. So she's been gone for a while, and she returns, and she has her son with her, but she's also carrying this baby who's obviously not hers, this like 2-year-old little girl. She has not been gone for 2 years, and she has the palest skin and very white blonde curls. So she's approaching her father and also her husband again, and she's hoping that they will take them back and also accept this new little girl named Christina as their own, because she promised Christina's mom, who rescued her, that she would take care of Christina and raise her as her own, and also make her strong, powerful in her own right before she would be returned to England to her family, because Christina's mom has this dark past. She was running away from an abusive husband, and so there's a lot to the story that we don't know in the beginning. And when we catch up in present day, we're in the point of view of our hero. He's the Marquess of Lionwood, and his nickname is Lion. And he's not like the most handsome ever. He has like a scar that like runs like along his forehead and stuff like that, and the ton is all abuzz with this beautiful new arrival to town. She's only been there for like a few months. She is a princess by right, because her father apparently was a prince of like a small German country. I don't think they ever mentioned exactly what it was, but his reign was deposed and stuff like that. So technically she is a princess, and her nickname is Princess Christina. And everyone's super intrigued by her. And of course our hero, when he lays eyes on her, is like, oh my God, she's beautiful. His sister's really excited, wants to go talk to her. wants to be her friend. She's also very graceful and poised. Well, his best friend Roan says, you know, I did talk to her, but when I just talked to her, she never really gave me any information. Like every question that I would ask her, she would give me a non-answer. So they kind of make a bet. Lion is like, I bet that I could get answers out of her. And when he approaches her, it's not as easy as he thinks. The conversation does not go as planned, and he is extremely intrigued by that. Now, he also has a past. His first wife died in childbirth, and he found out while she was dying in childbirth because he burst into the room, wanted to hold her hand, and she was delirious. She calls out his brother's name. So she had been cheating on Lion with his brother, which is terrible. So he's very mistrusting of women, and he just prefers to have like mistresses and stuff. Like he doesn't believe in love. He thinks it's fanciful and all that jazz. And it's very interesting because when he talks to this Princess Christina, she says funny things. Like sometimes she doesn't know the meaning of some certain words, or she uses words that don't make sense in that context and stuff. And so she just poses a very intriguing figure. She also has this aunt who is just kind of terrible. So I found this book very enjoyable. It's not one of my favorite books by Julie Garwood. There's also little things that I really find to be like a hallmark of Julie Garwood. Her characters tend to have conversations without actually saying much. Like they have very roundabout conversations about nothing in particular, and it's mostly just kind of like, I don't want to call it like arguing, but they often tell each other like, you're not making sense. You're not making sense. And the conversation's literally about nothing. And I find that to be a Julie Garwood hallmark. It's like, it's banter that isn't banter. And I don't find it annoying. I just find it kind of funny when I run across those bits of dialogue that doesn't really move the story further along. But those are things that I like pick up now after having read like a couple Julie Garwoods. So I gave this book 4 stars because I did enjoy it. I thought it was very different. So I did enjoy this book. Next on my list, so I had, my list is way over there. I'll be right back. Okay, so I have a list of books. Well, I can't really see, but I have a list of books that may or may not fit the prompts. When I was making my TBR for Historical Romance Readathon, thinking that I was going to read a lot of these on the beach, I was going through my Kindle and looking at books that I had already owned, and I wanted to kind of clear out my Kindle. And the top priority of this list was Sweet Lullaby by Lorraine Heath. I purchased this book last summer, last July, probably for a readathon. I'm very intrigued by the idea that authors who have been writing for a number of years, I like to read kind of like their first books because writing styles change over the years. And Sweet Lullaby was written in '94, and I have Lorraine Heath right behind me. I love Lorraine Heath. I think that she's a fantastic writer. She's pretty consistent as a historical writer for me, and she's also very prolific, which I love because she has tons of series that I still have not finished with her backlist. And Sweet Lullaby, first of all, has a beautiful cover for the ebook. I'm gonna pop up the paperback copy, what that cover looks like. Now, I'm not sure if there are copies, paperback copies with the beautiful cover, the beautiful clinch cover that is ideal for a romance collector like me. Like, I would love that cover on the shelf. But yeah, the cover intrigued me initially, and then I read the synopsis for the book, and I was just like, oh, this is very interesting. So from what I can remember of the synopsis, which is pretty short, it says that this is a Western book, and the heroine is actually somebody who is pregnant, and she needs to marry somebody else so that she's not having her baby out of wedlock. So it's kind of like a marriage of convenience. She marries this ranch hand who's actually working on her dad's land, on his ranch, and it's a friends to lovers romance. So I was like, oh, very intriguing. Bought it, never read it. So this historic romance readathon, I was like, I'm going to read it. I'm 60% of the way through with this book, and I am absolutely loving it. It is very different. Like, it does not read, if I didn't know which author wrote this book, I would not say it was Lorraine Heath. It just does not feel like what she currently writes now at all. There's just like little things that set it apart. The book is written in third person point of view, and there's really not any separation when you switch POVs, and sometimes you'll get like a random point of view from another little ranch hand, like his name's Frank and he's like 18 or 19 years old. And sometimes in the same scene where we're with our hero and heroine, Frank's right there and we'll briefly switch to his point of view, and he's like admiring like the neighbor's 16-year-old daughter or whatever. He has like a huge crush on her. And so we'll get like a couple lines from Frank, and there's really no like separation of POVs, which I find interesting. And you see it a lot in like older books, I have come to realize. But anyway, I love the idea of this book. So the prologue, I knew. I was like, Lorraine Heath is coming for my feelings. She is going to make me feel all the feels for this book, because the prologue was a little bit heartbreaking. Our hero, Jake, when he is a little boy around like 8 years old, I think, or maybe even younger than that, we're in his point of view. It's very cold outside. His feet are going numb. He's standing outside in the cold and the snow, and he's looking towards this beautiful house, and it's well lit, and he's looking through the window and he sees this beautiful Christmas tree and filled with candles, all brightly lit, and he was just like, ugh, like he wants that so bad, but he knows that he's not welcome in that house. And he sees another little boy looking from inside the house towards him, and he just turns around and starts putting out all the candles. And so Jake, our hero, our little boy, breaking my heart, goes outside and he goes to the barn, and this is where he stays, and he has to coax a mare to lie down so that he'll have some sort of warmth to keep him alive at night. And this is our first impression of Jake. He's a survivor, and he's so very, very lonely and wants family. But he also feels like he's undeserving just because of the way that he grew up. He is a bastard. He does have a complex with that. Like, he thinks that he is unworthy and nobody would look twice at him. So when his boss, the owner of this Kentucky ranch, calls him into the office, he's kind of worried. He's like, oh my God, I'm about to get fired, because nobody gets called in this office for anything good. He's very surprised when the owner says, my daughter, Rebecca, what do you think about her? He's like, well, I think that she's like the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. Like, she's amazing. Also, I love the fact that Rebecca is not dainty. She actually loves working the ranch. She's a very good horsewoman, and she understands the ranch cattle business and all that. And her dad has basically treated her like he would a son. And when he tells Jake, well, she's pregnant, Jake's first reaction is like, I swear I've not touched her. Like, it was not me. Like, I swear I have always respected your daughter. And he's like, look, I know it's not you. I know who it was. And he's left, and he's not coming back. And I need her to marry somebody, because I plan on leaving this whole ranch to her, and I can't do that if she's a fallen woman. So I need you to marry her, like, quick too, so that nobody second guesses that this would be your baby. And Jake, it's like kind of his dream come true, because he has the biggest crush on Rebecca, but also knows that she is literally one of the most beautiful women he has ever seen in his life. And she wouldn't look twice at him, you know? Like, he's undeserving of somebody as beautiful as Rebecca and amazing as her. And she's very friendly. Like, she's not uppity and doesn't look down her nose at him. So he says, I'm going to ask her permission. The dad's all like, why do you need her permission? Like, I'm just going to tell her she needs to marry you. And he's like, no, let me talk to her. So Jake goes, and he's shy and he's quiet, and he approaches Rebecca saying, you know, I know your situation. And he offers to marry her. Rebecca's like, you know, but I'm in love with Brett, the guy who he came during the summer because they were building like a new barn. So they needed extra hands, and people who were just kind of like traveling and stuff stopped by for work. And Brett is beautiful. He has dark hair, piercing blue eyes. He's a ladies' man. And this is the first time that Rebecca felt like a woman, because Brett was like very forward and made her feel like, you know, all the flutterings of first love. And she's kind of convinced, like, well, he'll be coming back. Like, he was in love with me. So she's resistant to the idea of marriage at first, but then also she knows, she's smart. She knows, I can't wait forever, because what if he comes back way too late? Then I'm disgraced, and I don't know what to do. So eventually she does actually marry Jake. And she's kind of disgusted by the way that her father's been treating her. She was a daddy's girl. Like, he has always respected her until now. Now he treats her like shit. And she just hates it. Well, she knows a secret that her dad doesn't know. Jake has land in Texas. And when she says, like, well, you're offering to marry me, like, what about your land in Texas? And he was like, well, we could go there if you want. I was planning on going there eventually, but if we marry, you know, obviously your place is here. And she's like, no, I want to go. Like, let's not tell my dad. Let's get all our ducks in a row. I have 50 cattle and you have horses and stuff. We're just going to take our stuff and we're going to leave. They take like half of his ranchers with them too. And he's so pissed about it. So they're going like settle this like untamed land. And so this is a friends to lovers romance. It is a bit of a slow burn. Like I said, I'm 60% of the way through this, but it is beautiful because Jake is secretly pining after her, but he's so respectful and he's so tentative. Like, he doesn't want to make her uncomfortable. He knows that she's in love with another man, so he's hesitant to show any romantic feelings towards her, even as she's, you know, her opinion of Jake has always been high, but the way that he respects her business savvy, because though he's really good at like manual labor and he's really good at breaking wild horses, or like she says, she's like, you don't break them, you bend them. And I love that because I like my horses a little not too tame. But she's good at the business side of things, dealing with like loans and all the paperwork. And she also is just fiercely independent, and he doesn't try to curb any of that. And so it's just, I love it. I love it. I love it. It's just so heartwarming, and I'm having the best time. So I should be finishing that in a couple hours. And I have a few other books on my list. So these are the other books that I have on my list, and I don't know which one I want to pick up. Possibly, Return of the Scot by Eliza Knight, because that's another book that I already own. I was also looking at Duchess by Day by Stacey Reid, A Dangerous Kind of Lady by Mia Vinci. I read a Mia Vinci book last historical romance readathon, and I really liked her. She's an indie author. And then also Improper by Darcy Burke. I always get recommended Darcy Burke when I'm just like scrolling through Amazon, so I thought maybe I would try one of hers. I haven't really heard much about her. I don't remember seeing anybody, but also I haven't been on social media that much, so I'm not sure what kind of writing style she is. I'm sad that I've read all of Elisa Braden's books, because if she had a new book, she would totally be on this list, because she is my favorite indie historical romance author. She's fantastic. Chef's kiss. Okay, so anyway, I'm gonna go finish Sweet Lullaby, and then I'll be back to let you know my final verdict and which book that I'm picking up next. Reading update, you guys. I should have updated you earlier. I've been quite terrible at vlogging, but I will tell you why. Excuses, yes, but still. The reason why I hadn't updated you was because Sweet Lullaby made me cry. And I was so emotional after reading certain scenes in Sweet Lullaby that I was just like, I don't want to sit in front of a camera right now. It's like, I'm just not feeling like I want to talk about it at the moment. So what I'm going to do is jump into a whole nother book, which I did. And it was an audiobook that is absolutely not on my TBR list, but we'll get to that in a minute. So Sweet Lullaby, what did I think about this? It's so different from any other Lorraine Heath that I have read. And even though the part that made me cry was something that you can pretty much predict, just because of the scenario that our characters are in, you can kind of predict like something's going to happen. And I don't know why I was so up in my feels, because if you've been watching my channel, I don't normally cry very much for books. There are certain books, I can probably name about 6 or 7 books that have made me full on cry. And I don't mean tear up. I've teared up plenty for books, but I don't know why. I was sitting at my counter heating up some pita bread and sobbing. It was so crazy. It was so crazy. So anyway, I have it's not that I have mixed feelings about the book itself, Sweet Lullaby, but I do have mixed feelings about what I should rate the book, because I really enjoyed it. I thought it was such a sweet romance. This hero, Jake, was so amazing. Like he's kind of a perfect hero. He does not truly have any flaws other than being too nice for his own good and putting others' happiness before his own. But I can't fault him for it, just because of what he went through. Like he could have turned out so terribly. He could have turned out to be such a callous, cold-hearted man, and he didn't. He is somebody who will give you the shirt off his back even if it's freezing, and he just wants his loved ones to be happy, even if that means he's miserable. I also don't fault the heroine for certain decisions that were made, just because, first of all, her age. I mean, she is quite young in the book. Both of them are pretty young. Rebecca may be a strong heroine, but I do feel like she's naive in certain aspects, especially when it comes to Brett. So I absolutely love the book. I am glad that they ended up together, but I feel like the lengths that Rebecca went through to satisfy her own wants and needs possibly makes her unworthy of the hero Jake. But also, how can you compare to somebody who's as perfect as Jake? Like, it's hard. It's hard. It's like, on the one hand, I understand her. On the other hand, it's like, it's so hard for me to forgive her. So I really love this book. I vacillated between 4.5, and 5 stars. So I'm just going to do 4.5 stars because, yeah, I would recommend this to people. I would. You can read it. Okay, so anyway, after I finished Sweet Lullaby, I didn't know what I wanted to read, and I was also, since I returned from vacation, I had some chores to do around the house, and I love reading an audiobook when that happens, and I just decided that since I have been kind of sort of binging the Pennyroyal Green series by Julianne Long, I might as well just start the next one. So that's what I did. I picked up How the Marquess Was Won. It always makes me think of that Mary-Kate and Ashley movie. I was like a huge Mary-Kate and Ashley stan when I was young, and they have a movie, it was like How the West Was Won or something. This. I loved that movie. I was obsessed with it as a kid. Anyway, so every time I say that title, I think about that. So this book was kind of interesting to me because the whole point of the Pennyroyal Green series, it follows two families, the Everseas and the Redmond family, and they are rivals. There was something that happened centuries past that pitted the Everseas against the Redmonds, and this family just does not like each other. But there's also kind of like this curse, and it's like once every couple generations or so, Eversea and Redmond will fall in love, and it'll end in disaster. So there's this overarching speculation about Lion Redmond and Olivia Eversea. They were rumored to have a romance, and it was rumored that Olivia Eversea rejected Lion, and Lion ran away and hasn't been heard from for years. And of course, it's book 11 in the series. So I'm like dying to get to it, and this book was only book 6. So every chance I get to listen to an audiobook, I'm pretty much going to this series when I'm in the mood for historical. Now, like I said, I was confused because most of the books are about a Redmond or an Eversea. And this book is about neither, even though they are peripheral characters, which I found interesting, but I also just really enjoyed the setup. So Julian, our hero, is the Marquess of Dryden, and he has a reputation for being like this Iceman. Like, he is unflappable. He's so stoic. There's all kinds of rumors. He's always like in the gossip columns, like, what has he done next? What are his exploits? What women has he been with? And everything that he does, the ton tends to copy. Like, he sets fashion, but unwittingly, because he's not even trying to do it. He does not care for the opinions of others, truly. He is a man with a mission, and that mission is to rebuild his family name and fortune, because his father was a drunk and gambled away their money and also any land that was not entailed. So what he's been doing is trying to build up their fortune again. He does not like gambling. He's notorious for like staying out of the betting books, and he's trying to get back all the land. But the last piece of the land, the last piece of the puzzle, and then he will have corrected all the wrongs that his father has done to his family. That piece of land is part of a dowry for a Redmond girl. So Elizabeth is a beauty. She's young. She's about like 19 or so. So his intention is to court her. There's going to be a house party at the Redmonds, and he's invited. So he goes into town, but he also is looking at this school for girls for his cousin or something. And that's when he runs into this woman named Phoebe. And Phoebe's very fascinating. They have these conversations. She's very blunt, And he finds himself laughing, and she is amazed because she loves to read the gossip columns. She knows all about Lord Dryden, and she finds this conversation with him like so easy, so different from what she's like heard of him. And he's actually like smiling and laughing. She's like, wow, I've made the Iceman laugh. And it's kind of like an addictive type of first chance meeting. It's like you don't ever want it to end, and that's how they were feeling. But of course, she's like, well, he's not for me. He's way above me. And he is like, oh, I need to court Lisbeth. Like, I need this piece of property. Well, she was going to reject this invitation that she had from Lisbeth Redmond because Phoebe once tutored Lisbeth Redmond, and now Lisbeth is like, hey, we're having a house party and my parents and my aunt and uncle aren't going to be there, and I really need like a chaperone kind of. Would you mind coming to the house party? And Phoebe's only like 2 years older than her, but she's obviously a lot more worldly. And at first she was going to reject it, but then she's like, I'm not ready for my association with Julian to end, and I kind of want to meet him again, and I'm pretty sure he's going to go to this house party. What else would you be doing in Pennyroyal Green? So she goes to that house party, and let me tell you, I love when a hero has this internal conflict of doing something out of duty, especially like courting a certain someone out of duty. Like this for me is very similar to the Kate and Anthony situation. But then also fighting like very real feelings for somebody who he probably shouldn't be attracted to. Phoebe, this school teacher, you know, who has no prospects, nothing to her name really. That doesn't really matter to him, but the land does matter, and he just cannot bring himself to let go of that. And I really love when a hero or a heroine struggles with that, like something, a goal that they have had for so many years, like it has been their driving force. The person who they're falling in love with is messing up those plans. Like I love that kind of trope and dilemma. It's just, it was divine. So of course they're like kind of sneaking around, having conversations in courtyards when they really should be with like the group as they're listening to an opera singer and stuff. And I love these little stolen moments. And also I love that Lisbeth is kind of noticing a little bit. And I will say that the dynamic between Phoebe and Lisbeth is very interesting. And I was just along for the ride. I freaking love this book. Yes, I did finish it. I binged that book, and I also went straight on to the next one, and I finished that one as well. So I'm going to give How the Marquess Was Won 4.5 stars. I will say one thing that I don't particularly love about Julianne Long is I feel like sometimes she brings in too many conflicts, or she drags on the conflict just a little bit too long. And sometimes, in certain situations in past books as well, I feel like sometimes she makes the hero or the heroine go a little too far. Like say something extremely hurtful to the other one, or vacillate a little too long in their decision. Like we know they're going to end up together, so why are you dragging it out to the final hour? Like I'd rather you wrap that up a little bit sooner emotionally. Anyway, so I do find that she tends to do that, and it's not my favorite. The HEA almost happens like at the very last page. So for that reason, I'm going to give that one 4.5 star, but I really enjoyed this book. The next book is, I can never remember this one. Hold on one second. A Notorious Countess Confesses. Okay. So our heroine, Evie Dugan, she is from Ireland, and she has a lot of siblings. She has lots of responsibility. Many of Julianne Long's characters in this series, like they have this like burden of responsibility to other people that they're struggling with, which tends to be like the main sort of conflict. So Evie has been the caretaker of all of her siblings for so long, and it has made her have to do some unsavory things in order to take care of her many brothers and sisters when she was younger. So she is a former actress. She's been on the stage. She's also been a courtesan. And she just so happened to land an earl. And Earl actually married her, which was like so scandalous back then. And he almost immediately died. Okay, so she has a reputation. She decides she's going to move away from London, hopefully make like a new start. And she goes to Pennyroyal Green. But of course, her reputation precedes her. And she's soon starting to be snubbed by everyone. But she does meet the vicar, Adam Eversey. And Adam is like very struck with her. Like, I don't want to say it's like insta-lovey, but he is very intrigued by this new woman. Not only because she is beautiful, but also because she fell asleep in his sermon, the very first sermon that she attended. She comes to apologize because he does make a little remark about it, and she comes to apologize, and they have such wonderful, witty, bantery conversation. Then his cousin, Colin Eversey, feels like he needs to kind of warn Adam, like, hey, this is her type of reputation. So, like, be sure that you want to actually, like, associate with her, because I'm seeing some sparks flying. I'm seeing little hearts in your eyes, Adam. So you need to be careful, because your parishioners are not going to appreciate it. They're already shunning her. But Adam, he feels for her when she actually asks him, like, well, she doesn't ask him. She comes to confess to him. And, like, all his parishioners, Adam dreads when his parishioners confess to him, because they, like, tell him all their sordid little details. And so he's like, of course she came to confess to me. Well, she confesses that she doesn't regret anything that she's done to get her where she is today. But she also confesses that she really wants friends. And so Adam kind of has this idea that he can spin her situation to the ladies who are, like, part of, like, the society that, like, do good works in the town, to be like, hey, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could just give her a second chance? She'll be reformed, all that jazz. So they do. They make an effort to include her. And it's really fun to see that dynamic between Evie and everyone else, all the other women in the community. There was this really funny auction for baked goods to help the poor, and I laughed throughout that whole scene. It was really great. So they have, like, Julianne Long is really good at creating a really compelling story and really compelling situations, like this romance between a vicar and a former courtesan, a notorious Black Widow. And the only reason why she's known as the Black Widow is because Miles Redman came back from one of his trips and talked about all different types of insects that he discovered, and one of them was the Black Widow spider. So like, oh my God, that sounds like Evie Dugan. So again, I love this pairing so much, but the conflict toward the end, I feel like it happened in stages. Like, it was like, here's our first round one with this one conflict, okay? And so we duke it out, our characters are hurt. And then we do round two with the same conflict and duke it out, characters are hurt. Then we do round three, and I'm just like, no, I don't want to drag this out. I don't want to drag this out so much. Like, I feel like the characters are hurting each other too much. So even though I enjoyed the majority of the book, it's like that third act kind of ruined the book for me. I don't want to say ruined, because I still would recommend this to other people, but this book could have been a 5-star, and I'm going to give it 4 because of the amount of time that the author felt like she needed to hammer home that this is an impossible relationship. It's so hard for them to be together. I'm like, but we know they're going to be together. You don't have to have them lash out at each other so much for the same thing over and over and over again. That's going to be my last book for the historical romance readathon. I had a lot of fun, even though I only read 2 books out of like the 8 books I put on my TBR, and then added in, 2 other random books that were absolutely not on my immediate radar for this readathon. Did not get a bingo. Of all those prompts, and there was a lot of prompts that I could have for sure found books for, but I was kind of wanting to focus on the books that I already owned. And I say already owned, I mean any play, it's easily accessible for me. So I kind of consider that to be books that I already had at the tip of my fingertips, and I just couldn't resist. I couldn't resist. And honestly, I did not have a bad readathon. Like, I enjoyed all of the books that I read for this readathon, which to me is a win. I'm still kind of feeling in the historical mood. I don't know if I want to continue on to the next Pennyroyal Green book, because I tend to get a little burnout if I feel like I'm reading like the same writing style too often. So 2 books are almost like my limit in series. If I'm like binging a long running series, I think I might switch it up. I'm trying very hard not to go back into my reread of the Kate Daniels series, because there's so many new books that I need to read. But it's hard now that I have started my reread of Kate Daniels to not finish it, because it is one of my favorite series of all time, and I literally love almost every single book in that series. And I'm at like the interesting portion of the reread. Anyway, I hope that everyone had a really great time for the historical romance readathon. I'm sorry that I wasn't a great vlogger for this historical romance readathon. It's almost like I've forgotten how to vlog. It's been so long since I've done a proper one, but I'm hoping to have more organization and better planning for the rest of the summer. All right, guys, if you like this video, give it a big thumbs up. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, make sure you subscribe to get notified of any future videos that I do. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, life's better with little HEA. Bye, guys.